Hey, Hope here with another video for you today. This time we are going over the Abyssos 8th Circle Part 2. Some of the mechanics in this fight are more dense. For these, we will pause the run and break them down more thoroughly. Without further ado, even the autos are different. They need to be shared by the tanks stacking with one another. These hit fairly hard even when stacked, so be careful. I'll annotate every auto for you. Starting us off, we will have 3 autos back to back. Ionio Per is a heavy raid wide with bleed. 2 more of the shared autos, remember these do hit hard. Tyrant's Unholy Darkness. This is a split tank buster, make sure that your tanks spread apart. 2 more shared autos. Natural Alignment. 2 players of the same role get the debuff Natural Alignment. As you can see, this gives them a purple-blue debuff, and their characters will have this spinning purple disco platform thing under them. Have these players stacked together in front, while a stack and spread gauge appear on one of them. This is to remove them from other players doing mechanics, and to make their gauges easy to see. They also have Allegan Field. For those unfamiliar, this means they will wipe the raid upon receiving damage, with the exception for the dot that persists while you have this debuff. When the gauges fill, the indicated mechanic will go off on the other players. Twist Nature. Causes one gauge to start building faster than the other. Take note of which it is because Tyrant's Flare. This drops puddles under every player, including the natural alignment players. As you dodge the AoE from this, you will resolve the first stack or spread mechanic. To handle this, have the party start just inside the boss's hitbox, with the natural alignments north as we said before. If spread started to fill faster, you need to spread after, then stack. If it was stacked, then move south and spread after. When resolving the second gauge, you will need to dodge Ashing Blaze. This cleaves one side of the arena, indicated by fire on one side of the boss. Here are my recommendations on how to solve the 2 variations. You can move this setup left or right depending on which side he cleaves. These spread positions will be used later. As this resolves, the second gauge will appear, this time indicating fire and ice. Have the natural alignment players continue to stack. Clones appear on the sides, always west and then east, for line AoEs 1 tile wide. Safe spots will always be in the first 2 rows. First fire or ice resolves with west AoEs. The second set will resolve with the east AoEs. Ice will put a stack on the 2 closest players to the natural alignment. Fire is 2-man stacks on the 3 furthest players from the active natural alignment. To resolve this, you will have static positions for non-natural alignment players for fire and ice. You will stand at your spot for fire or ice depending on the mechanic, shifting up or back a full tile as necessary to dodge the AoE from the clones. Have each stack and each fire pair have a designated person baiting the mechanic onto them. Have the ice baiter 1 foot on the inside tile, and the fire baiters 1 foot on the outside tile. Because of natural alignment taking 2 of the same role, 2 players, 1 DPS and 1 support will have to flex. In the case of ice, if natural alignment targets DPS, the adjusting support will move to the DPS stack and bait. If it targets supports, the adjusting DPS will swap and bait. In the case of fire, there is only one time an adjustment needs to be made. If natural alignment takes 1 from the north pair and 1 from the south pair, the north solo player will move south and bait. Another Ionio Pour, 2 more shared autos, another Tyrant's Unholy Darkness, 1 more auto. I hope you're prepared because this is the first instance of the major mechanic for this fight that I warned you about. High Concept. If you are minimum item level, this is an insane amount of damage. You will need at least 4 10% and shields. I'll keep this explanation as simple and clean as possible. First, let's go over buffs and starting positions. Alpha, Beta, and Gamma are all deformations, and there are 2 of each. One will have a short timer, 8 seconds, the other a long timer, 26 seconds. Additionally, there are 2 more debuffs, Multi-Splice and Super Slice. As indicated by the icons, Multi-Splice requires 2 people to be shared, and Super Splice requires 3 people to share. These will also have 8-second timers. Having an active buff and standing in close proximity to another player for a few seconds will cause you to mix. This is part of the mechanic and should only happen at intended times. It is forgiving as long as you pay attention. On the initial spread, you'll send players organized like this: short alpha northeast, short beta northwest, short gamma southwest. The 2-stack and long gamma southernmost on southeast, and the 3-stack with long alpha and long beta easternmost on southeast. You can and should use waymarks for this. The deformations and stacks will go off at the same time. Now we can review what you're given when hit by or executing the deformations. Alpha gives red, fire. This has 2 subcolors, blue and green. Beta gives yellow, bottle. This has 2 subcolors, purple and green. Gamma gives brown, leaf. This has 2 subcolors, purple and blue. For now, the subcolors are what's important, and we will get to them shortly. There's a lot going on here, but bear with me. As the deformations expire, we activate one of each, alpha, beta, and gamma. 2 towers will spawn in the center of the arena. They can be blue, purple, or green. If you have a subcolor that matches that of the circles, you stand center of the arena. Being in proximity to another player with an active buff causes the 2 to mix. In this instance, we made water blue. Now one of each player that made water needs to take a tower. For this instance of the mechanic, you can have alpha always take the north tower, gamma always take the south tower. The player who had beta, if they go middle, will have to flex. A shortcut for this player is if you are making green, you'll take the south tower. If you are making purple, you'll be in the north tower. You can also look at their overhead icon, pick the method that works for you. Catch all that? Good, because as the tower resolves, the boss is using Ashing Blaze to cleave half the arena. Just make sure as a character who has an active but unused buff to not accidentally mix with the other 2 players. There is a lot of room for you to not stand middle and no boss to hit. Also be sure to not run through a puddle you are not supposed to take. It applies a massive dot that will kill you. Now the first part is done, let's move on to the next segment. Here are your positions for the second round of deformations. Long deformations will go to the same spot the short deformations did. Alpha northeast, beta northwest, gamma southwest. If you are the leftover buff, go southeast. If you are the players who just soak towers, hit southeast. You are done with this mechanic, congratulations. Now we have another tricky part. We need to end those deformations with 2 of each buff on the field. To resolve this, we will send the player who had the 2-stack buff to gamma if at all possible, and the player who had the 3-stack buff will go to alpha if at all possible. You can check the active remaining player buff to know where to go. If the remaining player's buff matches where you're supposed to go, you go to beta instead. Resolve the deformations and 4 new puddles will appear in the center of the arena. They can be blue, purple, or green. If you had a deformation buff, go north. If you did not, but do have an active buff, go south. This will be the leftover first alchemy player and the 2 and 3 stack players. For players with a relevant subcolor to the 4 puddles, move between the 2 north or 2 south towers and combine. You've been set up so this will auto-resolve. Just like before, alpha will take the north tower in your pair, gamma will take the south tower in the pair, and if you are a player who had beta, you will have to flex. One final thing to account for. During these towers, the boss is going to cast Ashing Blaze and cleave half the arena. Give players a little bit of time to mix and sort into the towers and then cross if necessary. There's not a lot of rush here. Deconceptualize clears all debuffs and ends the mechanic. Ionio per 3 more of the shared autos. Limitless Desolation hits 2 players 4 times. Each hit will target 1 support and 1 DPS. When hit, it applies a vuln, so you need to be spread. After each hit, a tower will spawn. 1 tower will be on the east and 1 will be on the west. They will also only appear in the first 3 rows closest to the boss. Whenever a player is hit, they will have an AoE baited under them a few seconds later. To resolve, have 4 supports on one side, 4 DPS on the other. Use the same spread you used earlier in the fight. This makes it so that you only have one side to worry about and there is no communication needed for who takes what tower. Towers are taken in the same order you are hit. Make sure to take your tower immediately after dropping your puddle. Ionioper, this is another raid wide with bleed. Following this is 2 more shared autos, a Tyrant Unholy Darkness, remember this is a split tank buster and the tanks need to spread, and then 2 more autos. Natural Alignment 2, Inverse Magics. One or both of the Natural Alignment players will receive this debuff after the cast. Players who receive this debuff will have the order of actions on their gauges reversed. Make sure to keep the alignments close enough to be out of the way, but apart enough to tell who gets the gauge first, to know if they got inverse magics. Instead of needing to bait puddles and dodge into spread or stack, you'll be dodging the clones between spread and stack. The clones spawn, stack spread with the west dive bombs, and then stack spread with the east dive bombs. Don't forget to check for inverse magics. For the fire and ice, clones will spawn. This is the exact same as before, just don't forget to check for inverse magics. Immediately following this is another Ashing Blaze, cleaving half the room. Then we have Ioniopyre, 2 shared autos, Tyrant's Unholy Darkness, and 1 more auto. High Concept 2. First, let's review some new concepts about what we will do during this high concept. The first thing we need to do is mix 2 fires and make Ifrit. Be careful, the players who make Ifrit will receive a heavy dot, so don't forget about them. We also need to mix green with the Ifrits. Once we accomplish that, we will have 4 Immortal Sparks. These will link and convert all players to Phoenix. We also have 2 more buffs, Solo Splice and Multi Splice. Solo Splice simply means you need to be alone when it expires. Multi Splice, you need to have 1 partner. These resolve at the same time as the short defamations. So how do we do that? First, we start in a very similar fashion. Send the short versions of Alpha Northeast, Beta Northwest, Gamma Southwest. 2 players will be unmarked. They will go Northeast with Alpha. Remaining should be the long Alpha, long Beta, and long Gammas. Have the Solo Splice player south on the Southeast area, and the Multi Splice and remaining players stacked together east in the Southeast area. Defamations and stacks go off. Have the 2 unmarked players combine to make Ifrit. 2 towers will spawn. These towers can be either blue or purple, but never green. Resolve this the same way we resolved the original 2 towers. Go center if one of your colors match the circles. Alpha goes north, Gamma goes south, Beta always adjusts. During this, the boss will cleave half the arena again. Make sure to show some care while crossing to avoid the fusing players. If you touch other players, it is not a big deal as long as you do not continue to stay close. That's another step down, almost done. Time for second defamations. Send to the regular spots, no one will share the defamations this time. 4 towers will spawn, they will be green and whatever color was not already made. The order for the color of the towers is completely random, so it can be diagonal or adjacent. This can always be resolved by sending the long Alpha with the long Beta, then the long Gamma will go with the spare from the first towers. Send the long Alpha and Beta north, having the long Gamma and extra player go south. To decide specific towers, have long Alpha take the first appropriate clockwise tower, have long Beta take the first counterclockwise tower. For the other group, have the unmarked player take the first clockwise tower, and the long Gamma take the first counterclockwise tower. Meanwhile, the other 4 players do not get to slack off. 4 clones will spawn around the arena, 1 in each cardinal. These tether to the closest players, and after a few moments follow them, staying outside the arena. After a few seconds, they will send a line AoE centered on the player. Have every player rotate a full 90 degrees around the arena, ending near the wall at the cardinal if you started north and east. Do not worry about tethering to other players when going to get your clone to bait it. As long as you do not stay near them, you will not mix. Send the Ifrit players always to north and east where they came from, while the other 2 players with a full element take south and west. You can stand around a marker or generally pre-position to show which one you will take. Now you have Ifrit combined with the greens. This creates 4 Immortal Sparks, and those create Phoenix. All players must be topped to survive right before all 4 feathers merge into Phoenix. Ego Death kills you, then you are revived by Phoenix, which is a big damage up. Hello, Yukov. The boss will gain a damage up with every cast following Ego Death. Ionagonia, this is an upgraded version, so it will hit harder. Now for your final new mechanic, Dominion. Hits 2 supports and 2 DPS. Then 4 towers move from the center of the arena to the edge and need to be soaked before a second set of towers does the same. The initial hit and towers give a vuln, so make sure to spread. You also need the first players not hit to soak the first towers before finishing with the other players. Pair the healers together, tanks together, range together, and melee together. Tanks and healers will only ever soak towers 1 and 2, DPS will only soak 3 and 4. Healers will prioritize tower 1, tanks 2, range 3, melee 4. For every group, designate one player to always go to the prioritized tower, the other player will have to adjust. For example, Healer 1 will always go to the priority tower 1. Healer 2 will go to tower 1 unless both Healer 1 and 2 got hit at the same time. Then they will go to tower 2. You can do this for every pair. Ionagonia, remember every cast is making these hit harder. Dominion, this does the exact same thing, and it is not necessarily true that the players hit in the first time will not be hit here. It can be the same players. Ionagonia and then Ego Death. This is in Rage. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe. Huge shoutouts to Woops for letting me use his VODs, Yumiya for lengthy discussions, and several members of the Balance community for reviews. These fights were a fun project for me to learn with. I hope these guides were useful. If there are any updates or expansions, I'll have a pinned comment and information in the description. Thanks and have a nice day.